Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Combating Cancer. My name is Gwen Kelly, and I'm your host. Thank you guys so much again for tuning in to listening to me chat. A little background about me for my first-time listeners here is that I was diagnosed at 19 with stage 3 astrocytoma brain cancer. And I created this platform because I wanted to give a safe space where people that were either going through active treatment or in remission or have lost a loved one to cancer could come on and share their experiences because cancer is a terrible disease and no one should fight alone. And before we get into today's episode topic of coping with hair loss, I wanted to give a little bit of a life update. This past Monday, June 9th, I went in for my 90-day scans, and by the grace of God, my scans looked good and they came back clean. I just feel like a huge weight has been lifted off my shoulders, especially for those of you who had listened to my episode on scanxiety that I had recorded 2 weeks ago. I talked about my fears that come along with it, and I am just so unbelievably thankful and appreciative. All of the hundreds of text messages showing their love and support and all the prayers I've received. I'm so thankful for every single one of you. That being said, I want to talk about another topic that has definitely been prominent in my life, especially when I was going through treatment. This may seem small to the outside world, but to those of us who have been through treatment, it's massive, and that's the idea of coping with hair loss. Why hair loss hurts more than people think is, most of us, especially women, know the power of a good hair day. Your whole vibe can change depending on how your hair looks. I am really loving the way I look if my hair is fantastic and flowing, and I always feel like my hair looks the best after I get it done, and somehow I can never replicate that, but that's a topic for another day. But if my hair doesn't look good, I'm just not feeling the greatest about myself. Imagine waking up one day, looking in the mirror and realizing your hair is no longer something you style, but it's something you're losing. And it's not just hair, it's part of your identity, your confidence, your routine. And when cancer enters the picture, it feels like yet another thing is being taken away from you. So I wanted to go over my journey of hair loss when I was going through cancer treatment. The doctors found out I had a tumor in my head. They had to perform surgery, which meant shaving a circular area at the top of my head. I was so thankful because my surgeon wanted to keep the most amount of hair on my head that he could, while another surgeon would have shaved my head completely bald. So big shout out to Dr. Grant, my surgeon. If you close your eyes to envision what it looked like, it would be like you were placing a small bowl on the top of my head and shaving everything underneath. I remember at the time when I woke up from the surgery, I was absolutely devastated because I had lost my long, luscious, thick brown hair. I loved that hair so much. I hadn't really gotten into the phase of dyeing my hair like I do now, but it was so healthy, so thick, and I was absolutely devastated. I remember at the time there was a social media trend going on, and I had posted a TikTok to it, and my entire head was shaven. I think that's kind of how I let a majority of the friends know what was currently occurring at the time. And I just remember it was so terrible to look at, and I was just sobbing and I was crying. And I remember I posted something because I have very dark humor and I was trying to cope with it, and I was like, swipe up with wig suggestions because I didn't know what to do at the time, and all I could think of was just making jokes about it. I was trying to cover the shaven spot as best as I could. I remember the nurses pulled back my face framing pieces that I still had left after the surgery, so it kind of looked like I had a comb over, and I was constantly breaking down. I felt so ugly and disgusting, and at this time, I didn't know that I was going to be diagnosed with brain cancer. My thought process at the time was, I just have no hair. This is the worst thing ever. I remember I went back to Minnesota, and I was so excited because one of my good friends told me their sister-in-law did hair, and she specializes in extensions and toppers for women. So it's kind of like a topper is almost the male equivalent to a toupee. You would never know that half of my head was shaven off. And I was like, perfect. I'm going to reclaim some control. That exact day I had sat down, I had gotten my extensions. I loved the way it looked. I was finally feeling back to myself, like I could put this terrible event that happened to me to the back burner. And that same day, I found out I had cancer. And I just absolutely broke down and was devastated. And at first, I was still more upset about the fact that I was now going to lose more hair. than having stage 3 brain cancer. That might just sound so totally shallow to some, but it's the truth. I didn't care about the diagnosis. I cared that I was going to look like I was sick. I remember I had this conversation with my mom. I told her, I was like, I'm upset about the cancer, but I'm devastated about my hair. And she looked at me and she was like, hey, you know what? Hair is not everything. You're going to lose some and we'll figure it out, but you have to fight for your life now. And that was kind of the moment for me where a flip switched. And I was like, yes, losing your hair is devastating, but it's temporary. And I have to survive before I could even worry about styling my chemo curls. So I started treatment. I started with 30 days of radiation. And at this point, the doctors had told me that I was going to lose hair from the very top of my forehead to basically all the way to the back of my head around the right side of my ear. And I knew I was only going to lose hair during radiation and not that year of chemotherapy. So I was very happy about that because a lot of the times during chemotherapy, people lose all of their hair, eyebrows, and eyelashes. I was trying to mentally prepare myself with radiation. I remember I was taking photos every single day. And around day 12, my hair started coming out. And it was coming out in the shower. I would wake up and my entire pillow was filled with hair. It was in my brushes. It was coming out in clumps. It was falling everywhere. And I don't think anyone can actually mentally prepare you to see your hair coming out in chunks in your hands. And mind you, I want to preface that my hair was coming out in many short clumps from where it was shaven from the surgery, but also long clumps for where the radiation was hitting that wasn't shaven off during the surgery. And it was one of the worst things I've ever experienced. I felt ashamed, ugly, and defeated. I kept trying to tell myself, it's just hair. You're fighting for your life. It's just hair. This shouldn't matter. But the truth is, losing your hair is dehumanizing. It strips you down, not just physically, but emotionally. And I really had the temptation to shave it all off. I hit a breaking point during radiation. I told my mom, I was like, I can't do this. I'm shaving it all off. Thank God she said no, because I think I would have been more devastated than I already was. She continued to remind me that I was only going to lose hair in that one area because, like I said earlier, the chemotherapy meds I was going to be on didn't cause hair loss. And she continued every single day to tell me that I was beautiful with or without hair. She said, you do not need hair. You're going to get through this. And no matter what, you are still going to be one of the most beautiful people that I know. I still kind of get emotional thinking about this because hair has been such a emotional journey for me. And her words really kept me grounded. Although I didn't shave it off, I came so close. I have to thank her for that. And, especially during these times where I was feeling so terrible about myself, the real thing that helped me was the offers of support. My friends offered to shave their heads for me, women and men, and that meant the world to me. But I continued to tell them not to. I said, please don't do it, not because I didn't love their support. It was so unbelievably selfless that they would do that, but I didn't want more reminders of seeing other people that looked like me. And, I had other people dropping off scarves, hats, and headbands, and it was so thoughtful, but at times it was really painful because each gift reminded me of what I was losing. And that's something that I want to point out, that if you want to help someone out that's going through cancer and you know that they're losing their hair, you should ask one of their primary caretakers where they're at emotionally and mentally with that. Because some people need hats and some people really want hats, but other people want to rock their baldness. It's really important to meet that person where they're at and support them how they need, not just what you think they need. And here's the thing, throughout this entire journey, I found that you can find beauty again in the regrowth. Hair does grow back slowly, messily, and in stages. Some parts of my hair came back curlier, others with different texture or color. At one point, I had layers that were so uneven, people started complimenting me on them, calling it a wolf cut hairstyle, which, by the way, I didn't ask for. And they were like, oh, what kind of hairstyle should I get? I want to use your hair as a reference photo. And I had to keep fighting the urge to say, just ask for 30 days of radiation. But through the regrowth, every new inch of hair was a symbol of survival for me. I got to see what I would look like if I had bangs. I got to see a bunch of different hairstyles. And most importantly, I started feeling like me again the more my hair was growing. And my final thoughts throughout the entire process was that hair doesn't define you, but your strength does. I know what it feels like to cry over a handful of hair in the shower, and I know how it feels like to see yourself in the mirror and not recognize the person staring back at you. But I also do know this: hair does not define you. Your courage does. Your scars are not signs of damage. They're signs that you fought to live. And even on your worst days, you are so beautiful with or without hair. And there's a lot of resources and different supports out there. There's so many different wig specialists. There's hair toppers and extensions that are safe for MRIs. And there's so many different cool hats that now have hair attached to it. So many options out there. And there are a lot of trusted stylists who work with cancer survivors. If you are looking or know someone else looking for a hairstylist, I have the most amazing person that has seen me through all different types of hair lengths, and she is always accepting people with open arms. And I always say this, that I sit down at the chair and she's like, so what do we want to do? And I just say, oh, you can do whatever you want. And, she kind of looks at me and she was like, oh, you're just so easy with that. I'm like, hey, I can never have a worse haircut than I did after that surgery. She's seen me completely bald, and she's seen me with my hair now all the way past my shoulders. And I just think it's really important to remind yourself that when you're losing hair, it does show you that you're sick. But when that hair comes back in, it shows you the different stages of everything you had to endure and that you're a survivor. My final reminder to everyone is just that if you're going through this, know that you're not alone, and that whether you're going through cancer treatment or someone that's going through it and struggling with hair loss, just please give grace to yourself and others. Well, that is all for today's episode of Combating Cancer. As always, please feel free to reach out to me if you have a sponsorship inquiry or if you want to come on and share your story. Thank you again so much, guys, for all of the love and support and appreciation. I will chat with you guys next Wednesday.